Some people were curious about the random, extremely negative comments I made towards a game called Void Stranger in my last video and wanted a review. Well, I can't really give a review. Like, I saw a credit sequence, I guess, but I doubt I even saw a tenth of the game, considering everything I've heard about it. But what I can do is give an account of why I quit this game after 17 hours of playing. So, I love puzzle games. Recently, it's become basically the only kind of game that I play. My favorite games list is rapidly filling with indie Sakoban variants, and the trend will most likely continue. I like how, when you solve a puzzle in the game, you solve a puzzle in real life, you know? I've recently been getting swallowed whole by this fucking cursed nightmare of a game called Maxwell's Puzzling Demon. It's a game so catered to my specific tastes that I can't recommend it to anyone. Anyways, I was recommended Void Stranger dozens of times by my Tumblr followers who know my tastes, and I think this is where things went wrong, because Void Stranger kinda isn't a puzzle game and wasn't designed for people who like puzzle games. I'll explain what I mean by that later, but basically, my first impressions of Void Stranger was just a series of rakes I stepped on in sequence as I tried to find the fun. First, I was immediately struck in the face with the crunchiness of a puzzler with lives and permadeath. I reacted extremely negatively to this because it's an extremely alternative and hostile design decision, and it goes against so much of how I instinctually play puzzle games. But this is just some growing pains. I started to see the vision pretty quickly. It's perilous. The puzzles give you space to explore. They feel messy. Getting through one feels less like you solved it and more like you survived it. There's space to make risky plays and get more lives, too. Added dimension for repeat playthroughs. But unfortunately, I got to experience about 5 screens of this tension before dying completely accidentally because I parsed a pit as a solid wall, and then a demon tricked me into irreversibly turning on infinite lives. Basically, after losing all your lives, you're offered to eat some damnation fruit, and then the live system goes away. And the only way to restart from the beginning with lives back on is to discover a secret that the game only expressly tells you much later. I hate this. Like, without the live system, the puzzles are just straight up boring. Most of them are empty windows to higher level secrets I never got to understand, and the rest are designed with permadeath in mind. I had to go through the game trying my best to find the fun, acting as if there was still an incentive to collect the locusts, because the puzzles were just completely barren outside of that. I entered this unforgivably long phase where I was basically continuing on faith that there would be some kind of catch before the end of the game that'd send me back to the beginning so I could actually experience the game. But the puzzles do get harder, kinda. Like, they get hard enough that you can't really solve them blindly with permadeath on, but also not nearly hard enough to actually be challenging puzzles that I could go to any other game for. So, I didn't even get the crunchy permadeath puzzling that I hyped myself up for. I got rote memorization, running through the game voided, and then trying to apply that knowledge later. And I also felt actively disincentivized from optimizing the puzzles after I found long, boring, repeatable solutions for them. Void Stranger very quickly became a chore. So why did I keep playing? Well, while I was live vlogging this experience on Tumblr, I was being insisted to, over and over again, that I was jumping the gun, that I was a fucking idiot for expecting the game to have interesting puzzles right out the gate after it was recommended to me repeatedly on the basis that I like puzzle games. I apparently needed to look for secrets in order to understand what's special about this game in particular. So, I looked for secrets. We're getting into spoiler territory now, fair warning. So, the only actionable lead I had was the murals at the start of every chapter. I suspected they had something to do with the brand that I was asked to draw at the start of the game, and this was confirmed later when the last chapter showed me my own brand. I made it Microbond 1. I also noticed all those suspiciously easy rooms with the same dimensions as the brands. Now, I am not exaggerating when I say this game managed to convince me this entire thing was a red herring. Let me explain how it went. There were a lot of fruitless guesses as to what this could mean, but eventually I noticed that Chapter 5's suspiciously easy brand-sized room had exactly the right number of tiles I'd need to draw the brand at the beginning of the chapter just by rearranging them. So I did that, continued down, and nothing happened. On another playthrough, I noticed that Chapter 1's brand floor was already repaired, so I guessed that I had to repair all the rest in a single run. Except, 2 of the brands are inaccessible, so never mind, I guess. Thread over. So, all of you Voidheads out there know the mistake I made, but I want to stress there was no way for me to know if I was close to the solution or not, and this is why I don't consider Void Stranger to be a puzzle game. Like, you know when you're close to a solution in Maxwell's Puzzling Demon. You know when you have the method and the execution isn't there, or there's just a couple more variables to work out. You can reason from the initial point what would need to be true in order for the puzzle to be solved. Void Stranger and also Outer Wilds and probably Myst as well are just something else, a totally different genre that I just cannot stand, where instead of puzzles, there are riddles. Problems that exist only as associations in your head and not as systems interacting in a space. There's gray areas and ambiguities with these terms, like The Witness has a little bit of both puzzles and riddles, but Void Stranger is solidly a riddle game. In retrospect, there was one clue I missed. Like, Chapter 1's brand floor is already repaired, except for the stairs, which is the only tile out of place. This is supposedly prompting you to pick up the stairs, notice the instant feedback of the walls instantly lighting up, and jump into a pit. However, I believe it is equally valid to, as I did, interpret this as saying the stairs are a leftover tile that isn't counted because it needs to be placed down somewhere in order to proceed. When someone very kindly and generously tried to push me in the right direction, they told me my inventory has room for one tile. I thought, oh, well, then I need to pick up a tile so that I can use the stairs as part of the final solution. And then that didn't fucking work either. This person also told me that there's an NPC who basically tells you the solution, and I assumed I hadn't spoken with them yet, but in actuality, I had spoken with them, I just didn't make the connection. The Giant's Head, Gore, gives you the necessary incantation, where nothingness engraves the brand of the Lord, where the path to damnation rests within you, place your faith and embrace the void. So, engraving the brand of the Lord is arranging the tiles to form the brand, the path to damnation resting within you is holding the stairs on the end of your staff, placing your faith and embracing the void is jumping into a pit. It kinda makes sense. Unfortunately, this game already has a mechanic where you literally ingest the path to damnation, eating the void fruit, becoming undead, and getting the bad ending, which is what I assumed she was talking about. When I finally figured out what to do with these fucking 6x6 rooms, there was no aha moment. There wasn't even the usual disappointment I feel after I see the solution for a puzzle I couldn't solve myself. It was, instead, brutal confirmation that I simply could not have figured it out, no matter what. Like, what was I supposed to do? There were no other clues to find. I'd been given no other feedback. I simply interpreted some words one layer too literally and was locked out of the rest of the game. I missed all the opportunities to figure it out authentically, and the only way forward would be either being told the answer or pure guesswork. And it was kind of a combination of both. Genuinely, I believe this type of problem in games exists solely to simulate the feeling of solving a puzzle in people who just happen to think the same way the designers do. Like, I'm sure it feels substantial when your brain just kind of arrives at the correct associations and assumptions by chance instead of landing on the myriad other perfectly valid solutions and being met with fucking nothing. Because the solution doesn't exist as moves in a game world, it's just a code that you either get or you don't. Anyways, the reward for solving the brand problem was just cheats. The game gives you cheats, trivializing itself completely, even with permadeath on, and these cheats were the key to a bunch more secrets with arcane clues, so it's not like I was going to turn them off. I got the first ending with credits, the weird pro-life twist one, basically immediately after that, and the part where the game literally spells out a fucking cipher for you letter by letter is basically where I decided this was more trouble than it was worth. The cheats were basically the last bit of confirmation I needed in order to determine that despite being a 2D grid-based game where you push things around, it was not made for people who enjoy that style of gameplay for its own sake. Thanks for watching.